So what we want to do now is group our activities by date, and at the moment this is just my seeded activities that are all separated by a month apart. So let's edit one of our activities, and I'm just going to pick future activity 3, which takes place on the 2nd of October, and I'm just going to change the date of this so it's on the 2nd of September, so it's a little bit easier to see the results of what we're doing here. So I'm just going to click on View and then click on Edit and just change this date to the 2nd of September and click Submit. And if I go back to my activities list, now I have 2 activities that are taking place on the same date. And what we want to do is group the activities now and have a kind of subheader or a label above each group of activities that are taking place on a particular date. So let's go back to our code, and I'm going to open up the activity store. And what we're doing at the moment inside our computed properties is we've got our get activities by date, and this is sorting our activities into date order. But what I want to do is take this particular array that's provided from our activity registry and values and construct a new group of arrays where each unique date has an array of activities. So the unique date is going to act as a key inside a new object that's then going to have an array of activities as its value. Now what we're going to use for this is an array reduce method, and this is one of the more complex methods that we'll be using on this course to achieve this particular goal. And what we'll do is we'll create a helper method inside here, and I'm just going to call this group activities by date, and we'll take activities as the parameter, and that's going to be a type of iActivity array. And inside this method, what we'll do is we'll create an array for our sorted activities. So I'll just say sorted activities equals activities dot sort, and inside here I'm just going to literally copy what we did earlier and just paste it inside there, and then all I'm going to do for now is just return the sorted activities. And the reason for this is I just want to be able to take a visual look at what's happening as we build up this particular method. Now this is where MobX gets a little bit magical and a little bit tricky to see what's going on, because we can't really display what's inside our computed property here, and there's no easy way to create a JavaScript object from what we're doing here. And what we'll do, instead of using return array from, we'll just say return this dot group activities by dates, and then we'll pass in the array from and list.activityregistry.values. Now we've not actually changed anything here, we're doing exactly the same thing, but it's just easier to separate what we're doing here into a separate method. And one of the slight issues with React, there's no real way to log out from our computed activities what we're doing so that we can easily see what's going on. So if I was to attempt, for example, to just say console.log and then take our results of what's going on in here and just paste this into my console.log and make sure I've got the correct amount of brackets, quite a lot in this case. But if I go and take a look at my console and just open up and inspect and click on the console, and what we see inside here is a bunch of proxies, and this is because all of these arrays or array values are observables, and it's kind of tricky to delve inside to see what's going on. So just so that we can visually see what's going on, instead of using what's contained in my observable map of the activity registry, when we load the activities, I'm just going to add a console.log, and we'll use this activities that we're getting back from our API, which is just a normal JavaScript array, and we'll take a look at the result of what we're doing inside that particular console log. So just below list, I'm just going to say console.log, and then I'm going to say list.group activities by date, and pass in the activities that we're getting back from the server. And the only reason we're doing this is just so that we can visually see the results of what we're doing inside the console as we build this array reduce method. And if I go take a look at my console, now I can see just normal array of objects that includes all of the details of our activity. And just to clean things up, I'm just going to go to my activity list and just remove all of these unused imports as well, just to clean up the console. So in the activity list, I'm not using the button or the label, and I'm not using the link, and also not using the delete activity submitting or targets. So I'll just go back and take a look, and now we can just take a look directly at our activities. So nothing's changed, these are just our activities sorted by date order, and where our future activity 2 and future activity 3, both of these are on the same dates, which is the 9th or the 2nd of September 2019. So what we want to do is make sure this is its own array, and we're going to use this string as the key inside a new object, and the array, these two items, are going to be the values of that new object. So let's go back to our code and to the activity store. And what we'll use to start with is an object.entries methods on our array of activities. And we'll say return object.entries. And what this does, this returns an array of the key values of the enumerable properties of an object. And if I attempt to use this on my sorted activities, so let's take a look at what this gives us first of all to see what we're going to be working with in our reduce method. And our application is going to be broken, that's fine. I'm only interested in taking a look at this particular output at the moment in our console logs. And what this gives us, for each one of our activities, it gives us a new array which contains an object, and it gives us a key and the value. And the value in this case is our activity, and then we've just got this string as the key of the object. And what we want to output eventually from this is this key is going to be the string of the date of the activity, and this value is going to be an array of activities that take place on that particular date. And for each unique date in our activities list, we'll have an array of activities as the values that match the key. So what we're going to do is make use of the array reduce method. And what we'll do is we'll say reduce, and the array reduce method takes a callback function that it's going to execute against each element of the array. So we're going to have two parts to this parameter, because our objects.entries creates two arrays for each activity in our activities list. So we want to say activities and activity. And then we can add our callback function inside here. Now what we also want to do for this reduce method is we can give this an initial value, and this is used as the initial value to start the accumulation. The idea of this is we're going to reduce our current arrays that we get from objects entries, and what we're going to do from this is create a new array of objects where the key of the object is going to be the activity date as a string, and then the value is going to be the array of activities. And what we want to do is give this an initial value of just an empty object to start with. Now what we want to do here is say const date equals, and we want to split our dates so that we just get the string of the dates and we don't want the time. So we can use activity.date and split, and then the character we're going to split on is the t, and we just want the dates and not the time, so we'll take the first element of the array that this produces. So what we want to do next is check and compare the dates And we'll use a ternary operator to say if it's a matching date, then we're going to add it to the array. If it's not a matching date, then we're not going to add it to the array. So we'll say activities and use square brackets and say date equals activities square brackets dates, and we'll add a ternary operator. And if this is true, we'll spread the array of activities for list dates and then add this activity into it. And if not, then we'll just add the activity in square brackets. And following this, we want to return the activities. Now we're getting an error here because we haven't defined the type of what we're returning from our reduce function. So what we need to do, we need to give this object a type. And the key of this object is going to be a string, and the value is going to be an array of activities. So what we can do is say, this object is as, and we can cast this, and we'll say the key is going to be a string, and the value is going to be an iActivity array. And this should resolve that particular problem. And if we go and take a look at what we get from this, we've now got an array of 7 items. And the array with 2 values is the date, the key here, which is the 2nd of September 2019, and this contains an array of 2 items. And if we take a look, we can see that these are the 2 activities that we swapped to the 2nd of September. The rest of them are all on unique dates, so it's just an array of a single item. So what we can do now is we can go and fix the problems in our application and separating our activities by the dates. So let's head back to our activity list. And what we want to do inside here is loop over each unique date and then loop over the activities inside for each date. So I'm just going to add a fragment first of all. And inside this fragment, I'm going to loop over the activities by date, which is now our grouping of activity. And I'll say .map. And inside here, we're going to have our arrays. So we're going to have a group and we're going to have activities. And then inside here, what we want to do, and I'll just remove this out of the way, is we want to use a label from Semantic UI React and give it a size equal to large and give it a color equal to blue. And inside the label, we'll just specify the group, and this is going to be the string of the dates. And we'll need to give the label a key as well, and I'll just use the group as the key as well in this case. And below this, let's cut our segments and just paste it below the label here. And of course, we can't do that. We're going to need a fragment around our segment, our label and our segment as well. So let's just add another fragment. And cut our label and our segment and paste it inside the fragments. And we'll need to move the key up to the level of the fragment as well. And instead of activities by dates in this second map, we're just going to use our activities and say activities.map and then loop over the activities inside each individual array that we now have. And if we go back and take a look and see where we're at with this, we can see that each activity is displaying again, and we have a group of activities underneath the dates of the 2nd of September as well. And all the other activities that are on unique dates are just grouped underneath each individual string as the date header. So far so good. What we're going to do next is actually give our list items a bit more styling so they look a bit better on our page. This is not the final look that we're going for. So what we'll take a look at next is styling these list items.